What if I told you that a 2,500-year-old military manual, written back in the age of chariots and spears, holds the secret sauce for success in today's business world? It sounds kind of crazy, right? But Sun Tzu's The Art of War is, without a doubt, one of the most influential strategy books ever written. And not just for generals, but for CEOs, startup founders, basically anyone trying to win. So let's dive in and see how this ancient wisdom can give you a serious modern edge. Okay, so right off the bat, Sun Tzu makes it crystal clear this is not a game. For him, strategy wasn't about theories or glory. It was literally about survival. And when you think about the cutthroat world of business, where market share is territory and your competitors are your rivals, the stakes are just as high. One bad move can lead to ruin, but a brilliant strategy, well, that's your path to safety and success.
And that really is the billion-dollar question, isn't it? How on earth do we take these ancient battlefield lessons and turn them into something we can actually use in a modern company? Well, as we're about to find out, the fundamental principles of conflict, competition, and leadership, they haven't really changed at all.
So here's how we're going to break it all down. We'll kick things off with the foundation of all strategy, intelligence. Then we'll get into the coolest part, the ultimate goal of winning without ever fighting. After that, we'll look at the tactics of maneuver and deception, the absolute deal breakers of bad leadership, and finally, we'll wrap it all up into a toolkit you can take with you. All right, first up is the absolute bedrock of Sun Tzu's entire philosophy, information. Before you even think about making a move, before you launch a product or enter a new market, you have to have superior knowledge. It's non-negotiable. This is probably Sun Tzu's most famous line, and for really good reason. Victory doesn't start with some big, bold action. Nope, it starts with assessment. It's such a simple formula, but the implications are huge. Real power comes from a deep, honest understanding of what you're good at, what you're bad at, and knowing the same about your competition. And what's just fascinating is how perfectly his ancient ideas map onto modern business. Knowing yourself, that's just a rigorous internal audit. Are your leaders actually decisive? Are your teams well-trained? What are you truly great at? And knowing the enemy, that's just deep dive market research. You're looking at their weak spots, their market position, their leadership stability. This isn't just a metaphor, it's basically the original framework for a SWOT analysis. Just, 2,500 years old. Now, once you have all that information, it leads to one of the most powerful and, honestly, elegant ideas in the history of strategy. Sun Tzu was convinced that the greatest victory is one that requires no battle at all. Now, think about that for a second. It's totally counterintuitive. We tend to see business as this head-to-head battle where for you to win, somebody else has to lose. But Sun Tzu says, nope, that's amateur hour. The real goal isn't to crush your competitors in some expensive marketing war. It's to make their whole strategy irrelevant. The ultimate flex is to win before the fight even starts. Sun Tzu calls this attacking by stratagem. And in today's world, that means out-innovating everyone so their product looks like a dinosaur. Think about what streaming did to video rental stores. It means building smart partnerships that box your competitors out of the market. It's all about creating what we now call a blue ocean, a totally new market space where there's no competition to begin with. You win by being smarter, not just stronger. But look, let's be real. Sometimes a direct conflict is just unavoidable. And when that happens, Sun Tzu says you need to lean on two critical weapons, speed and deception. Being agile and unpredictable can let you run circles around a bigger, slower competitor. Now, in business, deception doesn't mean being dishonest or shady. Not at all. It's about strategic misdirection. It's about controlling the story. It's about launching a product that nobody in the industry saw coming, or changing your business model so fast it leaves your rivals scrambling. You make them look over here, while your real game-changing move is happening way over there. There's this fantastic story about Sun Tzu's descendant, a general named Sun Pin, that just nails this idea. He was up against a much bigger army led by his rival, Peng Chuan. Now, Peng Chuan thought Sun Pin's soldiers were total cowards, and Sun Pin decided to use that belief as the bait for a trap. So, on the first night of a fake retreat, Sun Pin tells his army to light 100,000 campfires, a massive show of force. His rival sees it and thinks, okay, that's how many of them there are. But on the second night, he orders them to light only 50,000 fires. Peng Chuan sees the number cut in half and gets cocky. He thinks, ha, I knew it, the cowards are deserting. By the third night, there are only 20,000 fires. At this point, Pang Chuan is absolutely convinced that Sun Pin's army is collapsing. So he makes a fatal mistake. He leaves his main army behind and charges ahead with just his fastest troops, thinking he's about to mop up what's left. Of course, he raced right into a trap. Sun Pin's entire army was waiting for him in a narrow pass, and they completely wiped out his elite force. It's a brilliant example of using your enemy's own arrogance and expectations to lure them into a disaster.
So, we've spent a lot of time talking about the competition. But Sun Tzu was very clear that most of the time, defeat comes from within. He believed that leaders are often their own worst enemies, and he pointed to 5 specific flaws that can bring down any organization. And man, did these ring true in the boardroom today. Recklessness? That's the leader who launches a product just on a gut feeling. Cowardice? That's being too scared to make that big, bold investment you know you need to make. A hasty temper? We've all seen a leader make a terrible, emotional call in a crisis. That delicacy of honor? That's the CEO whose ego is too big to admit a strategy isn't working and pivot. And over-solicitude? That's when you try so hard to keep everyone happy that you avoid the tough calls that are actually needed to save the company. These are timeless traps for sure. So let's bring it all home. What's the big takeaway here? The art of war isn't just a list of cool tricks. It's a complete mindset. It's a way of thinking that puts preparation, intelligence, and discipline way ahead of just using brute force. So if you remember anything, remember these 4 things. First, strategy always starts with information, not action. Second, your goal is to outthink your competition, not just outspend or outfight them. Third, speed and unpredictability are your secret weapons, especially if you're the smaller player. And finally, none of this works without disciplined, self-aware leadership. It is the absolute core of any strong organization. Look, the business world is always in motion. The tools change, the markets shift, but what Sun Tzu proves is that the fundamental principles of strategy, they're timeless. So as you go out there and fight your own battles in the marketplace, the real question is, which one of these ancient principles is going to be your most powerful weapon?